Alright, so this is just like a continuation or start of the conversation about democracy and how there's no democracy. Not even in the political sense, but just in like the general underlying sense of the word of like, hey, like we're collectively as a society determine what we're doing and where we're going. Example one is just like AI, obviously, like infrastructure being built and trillions of dollars of investments. It's like, it's not everybody's decision. And, you can give some leeway with that, obviously, because at the same time, it's like, okay, sure, we're forced into this, like, what's it called, Hunger Games between everybody, where everybody's, like, fighting against each other for money, and it's like everybody's trying to make the most. So, like, just put that aside for a sec. But I was just thinking about a more specific example, like Pride Month, right? So it crossed my mind. It was like, okay, like, who came up with the name Pride, and like, why was that determined? And I'm sure I could do some research and find some reasonable explanation online of like, oh, like, this is why it was decided it was Pride, and like this group of people were involved, and there were people that had different opinions, but these people ultimately decided, right? Like, why wasn't there instead a poll that went out to everybody in the world that said, hey, like, what do you want it to be called? Because the simple thing that came to my mind is like, well, why the hell wouldn't they just call that shit like LGBTQIA plus, or something that actually said the words like, queer or gay or lesbian and like, or trans? Like, why are these words being avoided and instead it's just pride? And like, why is it pride? Isn't that like one of the deadly sins or something? So like, just something that I was thinking about how like, yeah, I mean, there's so many things in society about how, oh, even when you get a holiday, who's deciding? It's not you. It's not a grand decision, which itself poses its own challenges and implications, because then you get to the really nitty gritty of it. It's like why we shouldn't even have language and why we shouldn't even have decisions that are even made on behalf of people. People should just exist and be free and do whatever. Like, as soon as you attach a label to something, it immediately takes all of its power away, right? So that's a whole nother discussion about labels and names and how you're taking somebody's infinite power away by giving them a label. But yeah, that's just something that I thought maybe that's kind of like two discussions in one. Wow, I just moved out of my place and going to LA, and I'm at this, it's 62626 today, right? So, and honestly, it's 06262026, which is even crazier how all this worked out this way. And I'm thinking, I'm about to, I just sold my car, which is a fucking huge relief for me, partially because honestly, I didn't even like driving that much, and then I hate being on the road, and then two, the money was great, and three, which honestly might have been bigger than all of them, is that I needed to disconnect from my person that I will not even speak of in this moment to even summon that energy, but somebody that was on the ownership with me. As you can probably assume, who helped me buy my car, this person. Anyways, they also requested that I call them today for something of a personal matter. It's just funny how, I'll just say both him, my dad, and my mom are blocked. Funny enough, I keep trying to give them chances. Funny enough, you would think at a certain point they would think, man, like I was thinking, like, that would probably trigger some self-reflection and thinking, like, man, like, what did I do? Like, I would be saying sorry every day, like, begging to be back in my life. And, it reminds me of the time that I told them over dinner, like, that I thought of killing myself, and they just looked at me. And I was like, really? Like, this is not even human. Like, you have no love. Or when I went home from law school and studying, and I was like crying, talking to my dad, talking about how he was like, oh, we're doing home improvements. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about home improvements. Like, I want a relationship. Like, and the car is really close to me. And, yeah, how there was just like no love in my family growing up. And it always occurs to me too, how it's like, even my family, it's like, it's not like I don't appreciate gifts. Like, I appreciate their gifts and stuff. Like, every time they go on a trip, they bring me gifts, and I'm actually meeting up with my mom tomorrow and sister, and my mom got me these new glasses, and all of these physical gifts are great, but at the end of the day, I could honestly care less about them. I mean, sure, I can't say I would care less, honestly. Let me take that back, because at the same time, it's like my mom and my dad, they both gave me a lot of money, they gave me a lot of opportunity, so I wouldn't even be able to do what I do now without them. So that even takes us to another conversation, which is like, I was thinking like how hate and love are like one and the same. They're like night and day. And I even was working with ChatGPT last night to write this poem about the most empathetic person in the world having a discussion with the most logical person in the world, kind of thinking about my sister and I. Not saying that those are who we are, but it's a very artistic view of like, that. So, and just has me thinking like, I think my family is really here to teach me. This is why I don't like being on the road. Yeah, he said thank you. Okay, but that's another example. It's like hate and love, right? Maybe my family is not able to show me love in that specific way, or just doesn't, or maybe they would. Like, I have influence, like, they all went vegan when I went vegan, except my dad, and then, they all are, I just know I have an influence on them. So it's weird. It's like, although I hate it, I was gonna say, for all of this, it's like they actually also teach me in a weird way how to forgive and how to show grace and how to, because it always crosses my mind. I'm like, like what if they are reptiles, and what if, I always think recently about this thing my mom said to me about how I have a birthmark, and she was like, if I ever lose you, like, I'll be able to identify you, and like, what the hell, am I gonna be like cloned or something in the future, and like kidnapped, or something gonna happen? Like, does she know something that I don't know? Maybe a lot of it is spiritual and it's not even like 3D human. But I'm like, even if all that is true, maybe they are teaching me some sort of way to love and forgive, and even when it seems like they're doing everything in the world to piss me off, like, I can still kind of come around. And reminded me of, I was watching this YouTube video with Connor Price, amazing rapper, artist, and independent, and talking about how him and his wife are business partners, and like they kept a lot of the business in the family. And like the wife at one point was like, because they asked a question about that, and the wife at one point was like, somebody might be having an argument, but then they're like, oh well, like, we got to get this done, so like they have to like come to the table and like put that aside. And I'm like, it reminded me of like, even my mom would say, she would wish that my sister and I would like be business partners, and she would see us on the front of magazines and all this, and I'm just like, like, maybe life isn't supposed to be just a breeze. Like, maybe, like, as much as I want it to be, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm just going to go full force and fuck what everybody else says, and I'm just going to do me, I'm going to be independent, and yada yada yada. I remember, speaking of that, my sister was telling me before, when I was like working with her on my 5-year plan, before we had an argument, and then basically like didn't really speak, and I mean, we were never like really, really close in that way, or any way, more like, we've always tried resolving our differences and things like that, but I don't know, I always feel like I'm a different person when I'm with her, and I feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, like, maybe it's supposed to teach me something different about myself. Like, the fact that I don't act the same with my sister or my parents and I do with other people, like, maybe that is something important. Like, maybe there is value in that. And like I said, life isn't supposed to be all like roses and butterflies. And most of life is honestly more of like the hard conversations and the difficult decisions and the difficult relationships I even think I saw another video talking about how, like, I probably have to end this video soon to figure out what exit I'm taking, but this other video talking about how, like, oh yeah, you get the honeymoon phase and then you realize what it really takes to sustain a marriage. And my parents have been married for over 30 years, and I've seen my dad make a lot of compromises and really keep his composure. They've had arguments and stuff, but what those cars, brother. But yeah, it really has me think, like, there's always going to be an argument. There's always going to be a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. Hegel's dying like there. I was just watching a video that mentioned that. Anyways, I'm going to hang up, but yeah, maybe that's what life is about being able to make those compromises. And, to a degree, you don't want to, like, lose yourself, but the tension is good, the conflict is good, so maybe that's why I'm keeping them in my life. All right, see ya.